Good afternoon. My name is Mike Owen, and in behalf of the Social Media for America Super PAC, we welcome you to webinar number 4 in our continuing series to bring state-of-the-art social media services and capabilities to conservatives in America with the hope of winning elections. As before, this conversation will be recorded, and we will be sending you all a tape that you can share with others shortly after the presentation. Please note also that you can type questions in the lower right-hand margin of your webinar page for the question and answer period that will follow the general discussion. Over the years, I've learned that there are two ways of fighting a battle. You can either fight not to lose, or you can fight to win. In politics, fighting not to lose is using all of the conventional media, television, radio, newspapers, etc., and perhaps 3 to 8 social media sites where you wait for people to find your message and you wait for people to come to you. On the other hand, fighting to win is aggressively using the social media technology. We pointed out previously that there are today well over 1,000 social media sites, and of these, 350 have over 1 million regular users. We will give you a specific example today. We have counseled you that you must use them all, which is at the heart and core of the technology we advocate, that you must consistently publish content to hold and maintain a following, and that you must actively blog and tweet to establish communication. Let me give you a really good example of this. On Tuesday, there was a special senatorial election in New Jersey, which was won by Democrat Cory Booker, who was famously known for his tweeting activity. During the campaign, his Republican opponent, Steve Lonergan, famously commented, quote unquote, "We want a leader, not a tweeter." The comment that obviously did not resonate with the 1.6 million active Twitter followers of Booker, and the number which was much larger than his margin of victory. The world has changed a great deal in my life, as I said earlier. 10 years ago, social media was something new, and 20 years ago, I could not have told you what the term political correctness meant. In the 2012 election, the Democratic Party enjoyed a 6-to-1 advantage in social media over the conservative side. To win elections, you must not only do what they do, you must do it better, smarter, cheaper, and more effectively, and this is precisely the purpose of these series of webinars. Please stay tuned. I'll try to tie some of this to the last 16 days in my closing comments. And with that, let me now introduce to you Mr. Kendall Lang, founder and CEO of the Social Media for America Super PAC and the world-class brand family of companies, and a foremost expert in social media technology. Godspeed, Kendall.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate that introduction, and gosh, I am super excited. Once again, we have an overly subscribed full house here, so thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to come hear what we're sharing in terms of information about how to win elections. So I want to briefly recap. Webinar number 1 is available on our channel, and if you have not seen webinars 1, 2, or 3, they are available in our archives on our YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go Google Social Media for America or Social Media Super PAC, and you will find our channel on YouTube, and you can view the webinar. Interestingly enough, as of this morning, over 80,000 views of webinar 1 had occurred. We have over 25,000 views, I think was the last count for webinar number 3. So the message is getting out there because this webinar is limited to 100 people plus myself. So 101 participants in the call today, absolutely booked, full house. Really appreciate your participation. Today we're going to do a little bit different. We've shared information about Social Media for America, what we're about, why we're doing what we're doing. Second week, we talked about a specific example of the Democratic and Republican campaign in the 52nd Congressional District and what those candidates were and were not doing with social media. Last seminar we did, the third week, was about a specific center point issue in the 2nd Congressional District in Chicago. Today, we're going to talk about drilling into one social media site that is going to absolutely be pivotal in terms of winning elections. So when we talk about will social media really decide elections, the answer, I think, is unequivocally yes. Now, this article from Technology Spectator reflects this year's elections in Australia, which we've referenced in every one of the webinars, But again, social media is having and will have a continuing growing impact in how elections are won. And that's what we're doing here, is educating people about the importance of social media and how social media can best be used to leverage for winning conservative candidates. Now, I just want to repeat why invest in social media. What's the big deal about social media? There is a tectonic shift happening in the marketing world. And if you don't understand what's happening with search engines and social media, you basically have to be under a rock. So when you understand that for the first time, Pepsi spent no dollars on television advertising during the Super Bowl, and that they spent 100% of their budget on social media, that starts to tell you what's going on with social media. But this slide shows a Forrester research report that confirms that the number one way that people are getting connected, either for services or products or finding information, is through search engines and social media. And it's an 87% by and large number that, compared to all other marketing channels, it's the number one way. So if political campaigns are not showing up in the social arena, they're missing out in the number one way to connect to voters, swing voters, and volunteers for constituents in their local area, because all politics is local, all social media is local. So as we go through this, today's agenda is completely a content webinar that you're going to be able to walk away with specific information about Pinterest. So this is Pinterest for Politicians 101, and it is all about how to use Pinterest. Now, when we talk about Pinterest, you have to understand the growth. When you look at Facebook as the number one largest social networking community out there, and we've shared those numbers in previous webinars, the number two social networking site out there is Twitter. Interestingly enough, the third largest audience out there is Pinterest right now. It has had record-setting growth, getting to the 10 million mark, and then going from 10 million to 17 million is basically what happened in January alone. So it is the fastest growing, record-setting, third largest audience, rapidly going to be eclipsing, if it stays on course with its current trajectory, is going to be eclipsing Twitter. So it's absolutely important to understand what's going on. There's a lot of information out there about Facebook and how to configure all that. A lot of politicians are focusing there. A lot of them have a presence on Twitter. But what we're talking about today is Pinterest and why you need to be aware of what's going on there. So a large part of that growth is in fact due to their integration with Facebook. You can actually use your Facebook account to open up a Pinterest account, and so that integration has helped them grow dramatically. You can link the two accounts, so when you post on one, it shows up on the other. That's a huge part of the success for Pinterest. Now, when you talk about the growth of Pinterest, 80% of the people who have Pinterest accounts have them connected to their Facebook accounts. So there's a lot of crossover between these two social networks. As I said, Pinterest is in a virtual tie right now for second with Twitter, based on a website referral traffic count. So this is basically the number of people clicking through on links to a website content that is linked off-site. So if you see a link on Twitter and you link off to it, that's the website referral traffic. So when you go to Pinterest and you see something on Pinterest, if you click through to whatever the target landing page is, that's website referral traffic. And those two, Twitter and Pinterest, are basically in tie for second. Now, the interesting thing is that on a pure traffic basis, Pinterest drives greater traffic to websites than LinkedIn, Google+, Reddit, and YouTube combined. Okay, that's huge traffic. So you need to pay attention to what's going on with Pinterest. You need to understand what's going on so that you can take advantage of it for your political campaign. Now, let's talk about where Pinterest is beating Twitter. And this is when you talk about average minutes per month. So Facebook, as the 800-pound gorilla, by and large has the biggest monthly usage at 405 minutes per month. Twitter is about 21 minutes per month. Pinterest is 89 minutes per month and growing exponentially. So it very quickly has eclipsed the average Twitter user time and is rapidly approaching the same kind of numbers that Facebook is currently experiencing. So we expect that number to continue to grow as well. Now, how to use Pinterest for politicians. Here's what you're going to learn today. Number one, what is Pinterest? Number two, why should you care about Pinterest? And then we're going to talk about specific strategies for using Pinterest as it relates to political campaigns. Then I'm going to give you some Pinterest tips and tricks, some things that you can actually go home with today and implement right away if that's something that you want to do. And then we're going to talk about resources for politicians on Pinterest. So really the question is for today, what is Pinterest? So when you talk about it, it is basically a visual bookmarking site that has a strong social component built into it. And that means it makes it easy for things to go viral. Now, Pinterest accounts were previously only obtained by invitation only. That is no more. You can sign up directly. You don't have to have an invitation. But what's striking about that is that they grew at the rate that was record-breaking when it still required an invitation only, which means you had to have somebody invite you, you had to accept the invite, and then you'd go on. That was the only way that you could get a Pinterest account. So now that they've opened it up, it's even growing faster. Now, Pinterest matters, and here's why. You should care about Pinterest because, number one, it absolutely impacts your social footprint. If you look back at the first webinar that we gave, we talked about your clout score, Klout.com. That is part of your social footprint. It is the Nielsen rating score that takes into consideration all of your social activity, and Pinterest, as a growing and rapidly emerging powerhouse in social media, helps you grow not only your social footprint, but also impacts your other social accounts. And I'll share why in just a minute. Now, it provides a unique branding opportunity because it is a very graphically oriented website. And we'll talk about the psychology of users on Pinterest versus Facebook versus Twitter. One of the other impacts that you need to know is that it creates backlinks to your website. So you can manually identify the specific links and where you want it to link from Pinterest to your target website, which is a very important piece. Now, it does impact search engine ranking. Now, I put an asterisk there because it used to have complete follow. They have done no follow rules, which is a technical term for SEO that you don't need to really worry about, but it was previously impacting. They've temporarily put no follow rules on the Pinterest accounts, but my guess is they're going to change that in the very near future. Bottom line, it does drive website traffic. Whether it's actually incorporated into your search engine ranking algorithm or not is not really that important, although I believe it will come back and be more important. But it does generate new followers, and you will see an impact from that. Now, when we talk about the psychology of the Pinterest user, if you think about Facebook and how it's evolved, it's really been about who you are. It's really sharing who you are. It's sharing with people who you know, who you're connected with, and really where you are. So whether you're checked in at the local restaurant or the sushi bar or the boat trip or at your relative's house, this has been the psychology of Facebook. It's who you are, really sharing kind of your experience, who you know, and where you are in the world. Now, Pinterest is very different from that. What Pinterest does is it's very forward thinking. It talks about who you want to be, not who you are. It talks about who you want to know, who are the people that you'd love to have in your circle of contacts, what celebrities do you want to know, who would you want to emulate. And it very much talks about where you want to be. So it's very visionary in terms of the vacations that you'd want to take, the kind of home that you'd want to design, the kind of fashion that you'd want to wear. So it's very graphic, and it's a very different psychology of the Pinterest user compared to Facebook or Pinterest. And it's important to understand that difference because even though you may have crossover of individual members in both Facebook and Pinterest, when they show up at one place like Pinterest, they have a very different mindset when they're compared to what they're doing when they're on Facebook. And that's an important psychology to understand when you're talking about influence and influencing people in a particular community. So let's talk about who's on Pinterest. And really, it's fascinating because predominantly 80% of the decision makers and influencers on Pinterest are women. Their age, strikingly, is 25 to 45, and they are predominantly suburban. That's a very powerful demographic. It is the demographic that advertisers are absolutely seeking. So it's a really interesting demographic, and it's one that from a politician standpoint is very intriguing as well. So it's a very, very highly coveted target demographic. Now let's talk about Pinterest mechanics. How does it work? Well, if you think back about, for the old school folks in the audience today, when you'd walk in your house and next to the phone you had a cork board, and you would take a Post-it note and stick it on there, or you would tear out a picture from a magazine and you'd pin it to that board. This is essentially what Pinterest is the electronic virtual version of a cork board pin board. So you're going to take pins and you're going to pin them to your board. You're going to take other people's pins and you're going to repin them. You're going to create your own pin boards. And what I'm going to talk about today is planning your boards, how to lay them out, what kind of things you should be concerned with in terms of maximum impact. I'm going to talk about infographics, which is a very striking, very compelling, user-engaging way that people are getting their message across. And then we're going to talk about the use of striking images, what it means to have viral content. And then really I'm going to go through a watch and learn session. I'm going to actually navigate real time out to Pinterest and show you some of the examples that I'm talking about here today. So this will be a real time watch and learn scenario. Now let's talk about some ideas for political candidates on Pinterest. This is where I'm going to link out to some specific sites. But let me back up here. So for political humor, I want to show you an example here, which is Pinterest, and it's my personal account, and I've created a board. So let me pop out here. Okay, so this is Pinterest, and you can see if you click on Pinterest, the landing page that you'll come to is kind of like the landing page of Google. It has a variety of information that's the top information that's being most recently published with the most number of follows and all that kind of stuff. Now over here on the left-hand side, you have categories. So you can either type in the keyword that you want to search for, or you can click over here and find categories if you want to learn about gardening, if you're interested in food, if you want to match with celebrities, if it's about tattoos, whatever your targeted interest is, you can find it by groupings here, or you can just search specifically for it in the search scenario. Now on this is my account. So when you go into specific accounts, you can generate boards. So you have your boards. You can look at your pins. I can look at my likes. There's an analytics component. I can find friends just like in Facebook. I can follow boards just like I can follow people on Facebook or Twitter. And then you can also go to the Help Center. So you can set your settings here, and I'll talk about some of those settings and the specific things that you can do as far as configuration of accounts, because there's some very cool things that you can do with individual scenarios. But let's take a look at boards. So when I go into my specific account, it's going to have my profile picture, and you can change this to whatever you want. You have an opportunity to describe yourself, including hashtags. That hashtags are used exactly the same way as they are in Facebook or Twitter. So you'll identify your keywords, you'll hashtag those keywords. So you want to be very clear about, as a candidate, what the keywords are that you're putting out there. And this will display, your own website if you have one. It'll show different social networks that you're connected to. So this is Twitter and obviously Facebook. And then you have, this shows how many boards you have. So I've created 72 boards. I've done 1,170 pins, and I've liked 46 pins out there. Now, I'm following 1,947 people, and I have 2,415 followers that are following me. Now, these are the individual boards. So as I'm mousing over these, you can see out of the 72 boards, I have a variety of different boards. They have different purposes, they have different topics. And the first thing that I'll definitely want to encourage you is that you want to come up with a naming strategy that is specific to the kinds of things that you want people to focus on. So from a politician standpoint, you can have a political humor board where you're pinning different images, videos, or links that relate to political humor. In this case, I have one that's titled United States History. So I'm putting information out there that's in individual graphical displays, helping people see, what's going on from a historical standpoint. And I also have one about modern day civil rights, and I'll show you In fact, I'll just click into this one right now to talk about infographics. So when you click on an individual board, you can add a pin. And when you click on this, you can add a pin either from your computer, which is an image. So if you have a photograph or a picture or a graphic that you want to display from your computer, you can just upload it from your computer. You select it and it goes there. Or you can go to a website, or you can take it from Pinterest, from other ones, and repin it. So those are your three options. Well, here I've pinned two infographics, and you can see here that I can click on the individual graphic to bring it up. And then as it resolves, you have the ability to see all of the information that this infographic is displaying. Now, this is and now it just focused in. So this has a graphical display related to the US debt. So as a single point issue, this lays out in a very graphical presentation the impact that I'm trying to get across in terms of what's going on with the deficit, what it means, all the different ramifications. It's graphically oriented, it's giving a lot of information, and it's a huge graphic. So there's a lot of information, and people love these kind of graphics. So I definitely want to encourage you that as a political candidate, you're going to want to figure out the issues that you're going to want to present, and instead of modern day civil rights, you could name it, issue specific, and then create posts or pins in these individual board so that you can present whatever the issues are in a way that's most compelling to your users, to your constituents. So this is just another example of a long form infographic that has a lot of data in it. So that's why it's taking a while to load so that it resolves correctly. But you can get the basic idea. So now if I want to modify or forward it, I can like it, I can repin it if I'm on somebody else's board, and then I can go back to this whole board for modern day civil rights. Now, if I wanted to go back to another board, let me show you a couple other examples. In political humor, I have a variety of pins that I've posted in this board called Political Humor. Again, there's a description here. You can see the hashtag, and then you can see the individual boards that come up, and you can entice people to participate in a conversation. You can get people to comment on these. You can get them to repost them. It's a great opportunity to engage people with graphic and humor. So definitely want to break up the kind of monotony of a political campaign with information that's sensitive to the issues, but also brings in a funny side and lets people know that that you're more than just a stodgy candidate. So that's one aspect of Pinterest that you'll want to create, kind of a humorous side. And then from an educational standpoint, you'll want to be able to share information that's relevant to the issues that you've defined as your platform. In this case, I have a passion for educating about the Constitution. So we've created a graphical representation of what we're calling the footsteps of the patriots. And it talks about historical figures that include graphics with some narrative associated with them, that talks about the history of individuals in our republic that people might not know about. So it gives you the opportunity to learn graphically and connect with information in a way that's compelling. Now we also have, let me show you one more board. So there is another board here called Supporting Kirk Jorgensen. So supporting Kirk Jorgensen for Congress. So Kirk Jorgensen is a former U.S. Marine Corps officer, lives in San Diego, has a family, is running for the 52nd Congressional District. He is running against Carl DeMaio, who is the current kind of Republican nominee, for lack of a better way to describe it. There will be a primary. And I think Kirk has a phenomenal opportunity to unseat kind of the front runner in the Republican and put a true conservative constitutional candidate in the race against Scott Peters, the incumbent Democrat. So when you talk about, how can individual politicians construct their own information, not only do they have the opportunity to do their own Pinterest account, so the encouragement would be for Kirk Jorgensen's campaign to create their own Pinterest account where they would share information and construct their account, kind of along the parameters that I've described here, where they could have, pictures of his family, pictures of his time in Iraq, pictures of him in active duty, pictures of his specific campaign issues, talking about different elements to his platform or his political position. All of that is stuff that not only can he do himself through the campaign, but you can actually encourage other volunteers and other supporters to create boards on their own accounts in support of Kirk Jorgensen. So they can then come to this board and repin these posts. They can create their own supporting Kirk Jorgensen, and this is how the viral network starts to get his name out there for someone who is completely unknown, in the political arena. So this is the kind of impact that Pinterest can have directly. Let me go back to the PowerPoint and okay, so the other one is a register to vote. So let me go back here to register to vote. What's interesting about this, again, you can be issue specific. You can, talk about the specific issue and link out from this picture to the target website. So if you click on that register to vote, it takes you offsite to the actual target website, and all this information is tracked. So we know, you'll be able to see in our information on this side how this information is being used, how many people have clicked through on this, where they're clicking to based on the target, and then you can pick it up from your own website. So this theoretically would go out to Kirk Jorgensen's, if he's registering people through Pinterest to come to his website, it'd take them out to his personal website. So the Trigger the Vote site is one that was a target to, encourage people to get out and vote. Definitely something that we're going to want to be promoting. That's part of the issues that will come up as we're getting closer to the midterm elections. Again, just an opportunity to also embed video. So for example, this is a board where I have pinned the first webinar that we've done. So you can actually watch the video on YouTube as a post in this board. So just again, you can integrate video, you can integrate infographics, you can do pictures. So it's very graphically oriented, and you can have descriptions and a lot of other information on there as well. So let me go back. And then what I talked about was the education and history. So I'd shared that one with you. Again, using boards for specific issue identification, education processes, very powerful. And again, you can link these to more information on your website. So with that, let me just give a few cool tips and tricks. One of the things that you can do with boards, there is a special integration on the API for developers where you can add a price, and you can actually say link to your donation pages. So for people that find you on Pinterest, are interested in the positions that you present, and like the fact that you're humorous and will link through to your donation pages, this is a great way to connect directly with your purpose of getting them to support a cause. You can have them donate $5 to save the trees, or whatever the issue may be. Another idea here for boards, Pinterest is a huge community for foodies. So there's all kinds of recipes, there's all kinds of ideas for great food experiences. An opportunity to create a recipe board that your volunteers can post recipes for fundraisers, and then take pictures of those recipes and actually post them to your board. There's also the ability for you to add secret boards. So you can have a secret board that is only available to authorized users that you give permission to see it. That way you can actually communicate private information or special or privileged for your VIP volunteers or your super volunteers. And that actually gives you a way to contribute, to get contributors participating, is actually let them post onto your boards. So it's a fantastic way to engage people, get them excited about, hey, we're going to do politics a different way, and we're going to do it graphically oriented. We're going to include fundraising ideas. We're going to include recipes to come along with the fundraisers. So these are just some of the cool tips and tricks that you can implement on Pinterest today to get started with your political campaigns. Now, just to encourage all of you that are here, we are going to be sending to all attendees here a special publication called Ways to Market Your Campaign on Pinterest. So for everybody who registered, it's a special gift that we're going to be sending out, which is Ways to Market Your Campaign. If you don't happen to get that, or if you were listening over somebody's shoulder, I'm going to give you the email address. You can email me separately and request that. So basically that concludes the presentation for today on Pinterest. We basically want to get you started on Pinterest now. We are going to do an offer here where we can do an SEO compliance audit for your website. I'm happy to do, for any political campaign that's participated in this today, I'm happy to do a 1-hour personal marketing coaching session to help you construct your own Pinterest account. And we are starting a Pinterest study club that is dedicated to all things Pinterest. So if you're interested in any of this, the email to contact me at is cio@socialmediasuperpac.com. That email is on the screen now. So if you are interested in taking advantage of either the SEO audit of your website or the coaching session for setting up your own Pinterest for politics, happy to do that. So now with kind of the wrap up on this is that this is not just about technology or tactics, but it's really about a strategy. So we've dug into the details of just one social media site, drilled down into how you need to configure it so that you can have the maximum impact for your constituents. And this is all about inspiring, educating, and engaging your local constituents in the community, in the social community that they're participating in. And there's a lot of folks in Pinterest. So it's an exciting new opportunity for you to win elections. I want to encourage all of those that are in the political campaign or entering the 2014 midterm election cycle that this is part of our conservative answer to start winning elections. It's not rocket science. A lot of it's hard work, but it is science. And when we're excited to continue to educate conservative, constitutional, patriotic candidates with the tools that can help them win. Now, just to reiterate before that, content has been, is now, always will be king. And what we're encouraging is, whether it's Pinterest or Facebook or Twitter, you need to have keyword-rich, highly relevant, issue-specific content that's going to be active, which means you have to be constantly publishing out to your social networking communities. It has to be current, so that it needs to be clear that you're engaged with what's going on a daily basis. You have to be repetitive and consistent with that. You can't just post once and then go away and then hope 11 months from now that you're going to win your election. It just doesn't work that way. This has to be broadly distributed. And again, Pinterest is just one of 350 social networking sites that you need to use this kind of deep marketing strategy in order to have the impact that's going to win you elections. So when we're talking about the social media revolution, what started with YouTube and Google and MySpace, which MySpace was the first social networking site to eclipse 100 million members, it's now evolved into really social media clutter, which it can be hard to really understand. What do you do? How do you do it? Where do you do it? How often? I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of sites out there that can be very confusing. And if you don't have a very clear strategic plan with a very clear strategic direction about how you're going to take advantage of social media, it can become overwhelming. And what we're trying to present in these ongoing weekly webinars are pieces of information about specific executable solutions that you can do with your political campaign to give you the leg up and help you win elections. So what we're talking about is the ability to distribute content in an organized way that makes it a lot more efficient and effective to get your message out to the target audiences through social networking in a way that cannot be done without technology. So part of the impact and one of the reasons that you want to go deep with this kind of strategy that we're laying out for Pinterest is because it creates links to your site. So Kirk Jorgensen for Congress has a website that he wants to drive people to. Pinterest is one of those ways that he's going to create links to his website. So here you can see WordPress and Think Local and Weebly. Those are just some of the social networking sites that have created over 4,000 links back to one of our client sites that is just an example of the reporting for how important social networks are when it comes to an overall digital marketing plan. So with that, the solution is really simple. There has to be an overarching strategic plan, simple in concept, that helps guide the implementation of that national education and training strategy that provides the top-down balancing solution for what is a bottom-up alternative to what right now is a lopsided platform favoring big government. And this is what I'm fed up with. I know that's why you're on the phone call. You're tired of losing elections. You want solutions to give you a path for a hope for success in the upcoming midterms, and that's what we're talking about, is an efficient and effective technology combined with training local volunteers that are going to get us there. So it's all about having that repeatable, reusable, scalable solution that creates a consistent branding, consistent messaging, consistent participation, so that you have that impact on a long-term basis.
Mike, let me wrap up some closing comments.
Yep, I'm sorry, I just had to take a drink there real quickly. So to wrap it up, will social media really decide elections? Unequivocally, the answer is absolutely. The question is, how are we as conservative, constitutional, political candidates going to play in that arena? And you have to have these kind of solutions in order to win. So one of the things that we're looking at is really this can only happen if you engage. And what motivates you to stand up? Well, from our standpoint, Media for America is really, it uses the life acrostic, which is not everybody has the ability to donate, which is really the F in the life acrostic of finances. But you do have labor. Everybody has an influence. Everybody has some kind of expertise. So whatever portion of your life you're willing to contribute, there is a way to get engaged, either with a local candidate or a local campaign, or you can go to our website to learn more about the opportunities for being engaged as a volunteer. You can always call us at 866-347-3321 in terms of asking questions or finding out how to get more engaged with what we're talking about doing. So with that, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you for closing comments.
All right, let me remind everybody that there are really two critical attributes to the technology that we're advocating. First, we have the ability to upload content to all 350 of those social media sites simultaneously with a keystroke, which obviates the manual and very expensive need to do it one at a time. A critical, absolutely critical advantage. The second attribute is the ability to micro-target specific demographics within all of those sites. What Kendall is telling you about keyword selection to publish in content is critical. It absolutely is a science, and you need to look at it very, very carefully. You can't just choose words to publish. You have to research what those mean and how much popularity those words have. Now these observations. My children and grandchildren do not get their news from television, radio, newspapers, or from their schools, and they don't attend campaign rallies. What news they do get comes primarily from social media or their friends on social media, and they form opinions about how to relate to that news in chat rooms. That's how much the world has changed. We observe that if we fail to embrace the full capability of social media, we will not only continue to lose elections, we will also lose the opportunity to educate our youth that democracy offers choices and different viewpoints, and it thrives on debate. This is a message they will not get in a Democratic Party monopoly that arrogantly tells us what to believe and how to believe in an artificial culture of political correctness. Look carefully at the political landscape of the last 16 days. There's a lot of rubble out there in the hearts and minds, a lot of pessimism, a lot of frustration, and a great deal of blame. The debate that we've just experienced on fiscal responsibility will predictably exacerbate two deep trends. First, the no vote, and second, the not vote. The no vote will take the form of throw all of the bums out and vote against incumbents generally, and it will vote specifically against those that are blamed for the perceived chaos by our nightly newscasts and liberal media. And my friends, that is us conservatives specifically. The not vote will say enough of this, there's too much chaos, and why should I care? I'll stay at home and be a no-show. To hell with everything. And that's exactly what happened to Mitt Romney, who was successfully labeled a Mormon cultist to middle America by a president who claimed to be a centrist Christian. History suggests that the 2014 midterm elections will be a low turnout affair, and that get out the vote efforts will be absolutely critical. And this is a core strength, an absolute core strength within the Democratic Party machine. They are masters at it. We should learn from it, and we need to micro-plan that get out the vote effort, every single aspect of it. One way to possibly counter this low turnout prediction is an observation I make, and the frustration and pessimism has been shared with me by family and friends over the last week. They and someone like me would find it incredibly refreshing and energizing to have something to vote for instead of having something to vote against all of the time. Leadership might be one example, and that's something we haven't seen from a president who is so fond and so pervasive has used the I and my pronouns and stand in such stark contrast to we the people and the use of the all-inclusive we pronoun by previous presidents. Another example might be fiscal responsibility. Nothing has changed in this last 16 days. In fact, there was additional spending added. This issue of fiscal responsibility will only finally be settled in elections. 10 years ago, the average portion of the debt by each American, the national debt, was about $60,000. I read this morning it's $123,000 per person now. And since Obama has taken office, the national debt stood at $10 trillion, it now stands at $17 trillion, and there's no end in sight. One of the lessons from recent events is why social media works. It's different from television, radio, and newspaper because it's interactive. People talk to each other. People communicate with each other. They share ideas. That was a lesson that Senator-elect Booker clearly understood in New Jersey. By tweeting actively, he was perceived to be an active, ongoing communication, and that was lost by his Republican opponent. With that in mind, I'm going to turn it back over to Kendall for question and answers.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I really appreciate, again, everybody's involvement. You have, as Mike was talking, you should have seen, and I saw we had almost 100% participation in the poll that went out here, so we have some great feedback on the polls. I will just let you know that you're going to be receiving, after this webinar is closed, a brief survey, just 3 simple questions. So we really appreciate your feedback, and I hope that you'll all take just a moment and respond to that survey. It does help us in terms of our planning and moving things forward for future webinars. So we are going to actually suspend the questions for today, and we're going to go directly into our planning for our next webinar. So I appreciate everybody's participation today, and thank you for active participation, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.